If you own a 90s era Ford, you probably noticed some steering issues. A lot of videos out there talk about upgrades and things you can do to help fix steering issues. There's a few things I noticed in the videos that I watched and things that I've learned, and I wanted to address some things. First, I wanted to talk about some things that I felt were missing in those videos. The second thing is something that I felt was talked about quite a bit in those videos and something that I have not done yet. First thing I wanted to talk about what I felt was missing in those videos that I watched, or at least most of the videos that I watched, were maintenance, not upgrades, but simple maintenance. And some of the maintenance that I did was new ball joints in the front, a new steering box, and new shocks. And shocks is something I almost never see spoken about in these handling videos. And I think it's extremely important, especially if you have a vehicle that's 30 years old. There's a good chance it's riding on original shocks, and it shouldn't. The first thing I did when I bought this motorhome was replace the steering box and do the ball joints. That was something I did not take on myself. I had it professionally done. I felt it was a little bit more than I wanted to handle. Steering boxes in these older Fords are known for wearing out, and people adjust them down to get the gears closer together, and they end up binding. That binding causes more issues. It causes the steering to kind of hang up a little bit. That is something that you should be diagnosing, and you should have replaced if it needs to be. The second, the ball joints. Ball joints, when they do wear out, you're going to get some slop in the front end. Check those ball joints, make sure your ball joints are good. Next on the list of maintenance items is shock. Shocks is something that's often forgotten about. People don't see them, they don't think about them. They're on the vehicle when they buy them, and they just drive the vehicle, and they never think that they wear out or need replaced. They do. And they make a huge difference in handling, a huge difference. Shocks is something I would say should be the very first thing that you do before you do any other upgrades. Because if you're putting sway bars on or other things on your vehicle, you're really not doing what you need to do until you replace the shocks. Replace the shocks first, then look at other upgrades. So the upgrades that I have done, past doing the maintenance, I started off with the ball joints in the steering box. Going past that, I did three different things. First, I put on a return to center steering stabilizer, then I put on the shocks, and then I put on a rear track bar. I have not yet at this point put on any sway bars or upgraded the sway bars. So sway bars is something that I will touch on in the end of this video. For now, I wanted to talk a little bit more about what I have done and what I felt it's done for the handling of the vehicle. The next thing I did was an upgrade, the return to center steering stabilizer. Now the return to center steering stabilizer is a steering stabilizer that is spring loaded. It actually returns your front wheels to center when you're turning and helps it track straighter. I used the Super Steer steering stabilizer. Did it make a huge difference? On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to say a 2 or a 3. Yes, it made a difference. I felt it was a piece of the puzzle. Did it like dramatically change the way it handled? No, it didn't, but it did help a little bit. Do I think it was worth it? Would I spend the money again on a return to center steering stabilizer? Yes, I probably would. And I am glad I did that. I will say that after I did the return to center steering stabilizer, I only test drove it for probably 20-ish miles or so before I did my next upgrade, which was the shocks. And that is something that I felt made the biggest impact, made the most difference in how the RV handled. Like I said, I think shocks are often forgotten about. People don't see them. They don't think about them. When I pulled my shocks off of here, I'm pretty sure they were original equipment. My motorhome is a 97. It was 2025 when I pulled them off. So we're talking about 28-year-old shocks. And two of them were in really, really bad shape. And the two that were in bad shape were opposite corners of the motorhome. One on the front driver and rear passenger. So having two completely blown shocks opposite of each other, I think added a lot to the way the machine porpoised and handled going down the freeway very poorly and very dangerously. The shocks that I chose to go with were the Bilstein 4600 series. I feel they are good shocks. I did a lot of research. A lot of people are recommending the Konis. The only reason I did not put the Konis on was they were twice the price and I had to cut off the budget somewhere. But I still feel the Bilsteins are doing a very good job, and a lot of people are running them and a lot of people recommend them. I definitely recommend them too. I'm not saying I don't recommend the Konis. I'm just saying that's not the ones I use, but a lot of people are using those too. Either way, I would recommend putting a good shock on your motorhome, whichever brand you choose. The next thing I did was I put on a rear track bar from Supersteer. The rear track bar essentially stops the spring flex from going side to side and keeps your rear axle centered, because your rear axle can flex back and forth just a little bit and just enough to affect the handling. And all that translates into loose steering, sloppy steering, and wandering all over the road. Did the rear track bar help? I felt it's kind of on par with the return to center steering stabilizer. Did it help? Yes. Was it dramatic or huge? No. I still think the biggest thing that made a difference in the way this handled was putting on the shocks. That said, would I recommend a track bar? Yes, I would. It does make a difference. It's a piece to the bigger picture, but it is not the entire picture in and of itself. After all those upgrades were done, there was still one upgrade that I didn't do yet, and that's the one that you see most often talked about, and that is the sway bar upgrades. I have not done the sway bar upgrades. I wanted to spend some time driving the motorhome and seeing how it handles, seeing what I felt it needed, and make a decision about the sway bar upgrades at a different date. Shortly after those upgrades, we took a trip up around the Olympic Peninsula. We covered about 1,000 miles on the road. Up on the Olympic Peninsula, there is some windy areas, and I did feel a lot of side wind, and I think I decided at that point that a sway bar upgrade probably would be a good idea. Although I have to say that the motorhome handled much better. It was drivable. It was fairly easy to drive. It was not perfect, but I think the sway bars would improve a little bit more and just kind of tighten things up a little bit. Overall impressions, I will say that there are things you can do to make your old vintage motorhome, if this is a vintage motorhome, handle and drive much safer, but it will cost you a little bit of money, and it's not only upgrades, some of it is maintenance issues. The shocks are a maintenance issue. They should be looked at. They should be addressed, as well as the ball joints and the steering box. Other things that are upgrades, they made a difference, but I think you should check the maintenance items first. Thank you for watching, and I hope you find a way to make your motorhome or whatever vehicle you're driving drive much safer for you and keep you on the road and keep you and your family alive and other people alive too. Peace and cheers.
Easy, easy now. Easy, Tiger.
It's not like the entire puzzle. I'm not good at this.